Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for waiting. Welcome to the webinar, International Marketing, a Digital First Approach During COVID-19. My name is Anya Ren. I'm the Manager for Market Support and Programs at BC Council for International Education, and I'll be today's moderator. Thank you for joining us on what I hope will be an informative presentation on digital marketing and recruitment. Before we get started, it is important I acknowledge at BCCIE, we live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The VIU community acknowledges and thanks the Sunemu, Kuwatan, and Telamin, on whose traditional lands we teach, learn, research, live, and share knowledge. UFV is situated on the unceded traditional territory of the Stolo peoples. Therefore, we express our gratitude and respect for the honor of living and working in this territory. Now on to a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be muted during the webinar. If you'd like to submit a question to our panelists during the broadcast, please type them into the question box in the control panel. We'll try to get to them during the Q&A session at the very end. If you require any technical assistance during the webinar, please also use the question box. My coworker Gabrielle and myself will help you from there. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters. Joining us today, we have Yelda Ahmadi, Associate Director, International Marketing and Applicant Relations from the University of the Fraser Valley. We also have two colleagues joining from Vancouver Island University, Bruce Condy, the Director of International Marketing and Recruitment, and Leanne Spasnik, the Manager for International Communication and Recruitment. Thank you all for joining, and please take it away from here.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much, Anya, for the introduction. My name is Bruce Condy. I work for Vancouver Island University. We've got a lot of information to cover today, so we're going to go through this as quickly as we possible. And I'm going to start by just introducing the agenda for this next hour. So we'll be doing a brief introduction now and a little overview. We'll look at the structure of the marketing team, because it's important to know who VIU and UFV are, how we're structured as far as our digital marketing abilities. We'll be looking at digital tools and topics. We'll again looking at opportunities and challenges, and we're going to finish up with hopefully some time for discussion, some Q&A. So we're looking for some input from you guys too. For the overview, we are in a situation with COVID that has really disrupted our international marketing business, whether you be in a university, a college, or even high schools. We're all being greatly affected by this. Everything that we did pre-COVID with live face-to-face recruitment events and that now have to be done totally virtually, as everybody has to work from home, and that goes across the globe. There has been an evolution towards more virtual and online marketing and recruitment tools over the last 5 years, but COVID has really forced us to ramp it up to do it in 5 weeks, essentially. So this is a really critical piece of what we are having to do now. So now I'd just like to talk a little bit about how we're structured marketing team-wise, so you have an idea of from where we're speaking from. From Vancouver Island University, just a brief introduction. We're a public university, about 15,000 students. We had last year about 2,300 international students. When you look at the FTE rates, it's about 20% of our student population is international. So it's a very important part of our student body, and that we need to address them carefully. We have to treat them very, very well. For our marketing team, our international marketing team, we have 3 full-time recruiters who are based out of Nanaimo, which is where our main campus is. We also have 5 offshore offices, which we have dedicated people who, again, do marketing recruitment for VIU. So in our home team office as well, we do have a very good team of 2 people who are exclusively working on virtual and online platforms. We've had them for the last year, 2 years, and thank goodness, because as soon as this thing ramped to total virtual, they became very key into everything that we do. So in general, that's where VIU is as regards to its marketing campaigns. I'm going to pass it over to Yelda to give a brief overview for UFV.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. UFV is very similar to VIU, a medium-sized public post-secondary education here in the beautiful Fraser Valley. We have about 15,000 students, and international students make 20% of them. We have about 7 people in our international marketing and recruitment team. In addition to our AVP of international and myself, we have 3 regional recruitment managers who work on student relations, recruitment, and agent relations around the world. We have an applicant relations manager, and she's very important in terms of all of our conversion efforts. And we have 2 positions dedicated to marketing, all form of marketing, and we have a position vacant actually right now for a digital strategist, for a marketing digital strategist. And of course, we have 1 person in China who's our offshore office. That's about it. Back to you, Bruce.
Okay, we just mentioned this is because it's important to know the resources you have will largely determine how quickly you can change your methods into the virtual arena. Can we go to the next slide just and we'll continue? Okay, so the need for expertise, technology, and processes in the virtual world. You need to have the technology. You need to have the access to the Facebooks, the social media channels, all of that. You need to have the processes for the results that are gotten through these methods, through these platforms, and take them through and add them into your recruitment funnel so that it's got to work as seamlessly as possible. It can always be improved. And my key point here is that you need the expertise to do it. So it's not something that I found you can do off the side of your desk. You need people who are trained and passionate about virtual methods because they are important. They're going to become more important, and we can't afford to leave those avenues unexplored. The last thing I'm going to mention, the overview here, is that we have to adjust to different markets just as we would in the old methods that we would use. Government regulations are all changed now, including now we have travel regulations, that sort of thing. There's cost factors. You can save money by not traveling, but there's other extra costs for, say, virtual fares, that sort of thing. Program availability or platform availability is a major thing that you must consider. In certain areas of the world, the easiest one is China, where certain platforms, or most platforms, are not available. They force you to use the Chinese platforms if you want to reach out in a virtual way. And so you have to be able to adjust to that. And then beyond that, there's even differences in the preferences in online marketing. Even though all the tools are, say, available in a country or region, there are personal preferences by the community in using certain platforms. You need to do your research and find those out so that you adjust your strategy accordingly. This is just a very quick list of some of the options that are available for you to use on a virtual marketing and recruitment. Everything from virtual fairs, webinars, online ads, the website, which is critical, your email marketing campaign, CRM. Your social media is been talked about a lot. You've got your standard ones, your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, but you have to keep your eyes on some of the up-and-comer other aspects like TikTok, WhatsApp, WeChat, Yellow. And then finally, we found online student appointments where students get to talk directly to recruiters is a very important piece. We're going to get into more depth of these when we get further into the presentation. And last, for my part here, is I just want to talk about the recruitment funnel. This is sort of the fundamental piece that we all are familiar with in doing marketing recruitment for international or anything else, but that we base all of our strategies and activities on prior to COVID. And with COVID, with going online, this hasn't changed. You're still looking at the same funnel process. You're just looking at different tools to be able to accomplish them, and those are now virtual. So now I'm going to hand it over to look at the case studies and tools, and I think Yelda's up next.
Thank you, Bruce. So next we're going to look at a few tools and sort of what the VIU and UFV has been up to during COVID-19. Before we get to that, I just wanted to do a reminder on consistent and professional branding. I think it's always important for us to be making sure that our branding is consistent and professional when we are putting any marketing and recruitment material out there. But now that everything is virtual, it's just even more important to be focusing on that. I have included a few slides here from our recruitment presentation, and I just wanted to bring your attention that we are focusing still on the reasons of why students should study abroad or choose your university over another university. So, reasons on how the university is preparing them for a career, whether there are scholarships available, and what are the graduation outcomes are some of the things that we have been really focusing a lot since COVID-19, because of course, students are hit with economically, families are hit economically. There's so many options out there. Competition is really tight, and we need to really keep on talking about these points. Here are some other examples quickly of our social media posts. Again, keeping consistent branding across all platforms, and a few examples of our digital digital ads. So on the left, I have an example of a Google display ad. In the middle is an example of an Instagram story, and then on the right is an example of a Google search ad. There's not any COVID-19 related messaging in these. These are our general marketing and recruitment campaigns that are active during COVID-19. And of course, your website is the most important source of information. It's your mothership, if you will, and you need to make sure that the branding is consistent and expands to your website, and of course, keeping it all up to date with information. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Yalda. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to talk about how communications have changed specifically because of COVID-19, and I'll do this by identifying the various audiences that we speak to. So first of all is our students, of course. So important to be transparent with them at this time and empathetic. I mean, the decision to study abroad in Canada is such a big decision. It's one of the biggest they'll make in their lives, and so the uncertainty is bringing added stress for them right now. And I think that the way that we communicate with them has to reflect that. And when I speak about transparency, when we have sessions for students, we don't always have all the answers right now. And so we can admit that and say, we don't know what's going to happen in January or next September yet. We're going to tell you as soon as we know, and be as consistent as we can with our communication during the time in between. We also are cognizant of the communication between our internal teams, because the way that we're working is really changing right now. Our teams in Nanaimo are all working from home right now, so we have communication via Zoom. We also have been using a messaging tool for quite a while in the office called Slack, and we're making such use of that right now because it's just a way to ask those quick questions that you might have done in the office by popping your head into someone's office. And so we're keeping up that moment-to-moment communication that way. We have a WhatsApp group for our global team because we do have the 5 global offices, and so we're communicating with them about ongoing changes. We're connected on social media, and obviously email is always so important. And then we're getting together as an entire team to host webinars and live streams, and so recognizing that there is a learning curve for our team there, but also we're finding that that those opportunities are bringing us closer together. Our agents and partners need a lot of support right now too, and so some of the seminars that we're running online are specifically for agents to address their needs. They are one-on-one with our future students right now, and so they need to have accurate information and information that that reflects the latest information that we have regarding COVID-19. So we are also in direct contact with them. We've had a monthly newsletter for a couple of years now, and that has been increased to weekly and sometimes even more frequently in order to get the latest information to them. And then our institution-wide communications, we have a new committee that's set up with people from all over campus, so domestic marketing and the executive team and international and many other people who are face-to-face with students and prospective students. And we're just making sure that our wording is similar, that our message and tone are consistent, because international students will be looking at the international website and our social media platforms, but they'll also be looking at the platforms for the university as a whole. And so we need to make sure that there's no confusion caused by different messages. So we're just working together to stay consistent.
And I have included here a screenshot of our website. So for COVID-19 related communications, we have created a special button rare on the top right corner. And when you click on it, it's central information for the university. We have our president's updates on what's happening, what's going to happen next semester. We get these weekly regular updates. And then on the right column there, we have information for students, staff, and teaching faculty to look at it. So when you click on any of those links, you go into further details on, for example, for students, how the learning environment is, what are they supposed to do, what system capabilities they have, how are they going to be assessed, so on and so forth. So again, having a central point for all of those questions and the information.
So we've really ramped up our online events participation in the last 8 weeks or so since we've been affected by COVID-19. Some of those events have been run by external partners. So the screenshot you see there is from an FPP EduCanada fair that we attended recently in Latin America. So we've been able to use their tool to customize our booth for the market. We are also looking at attending agent fairs. We've attended several already with a wide variety of I think coming up to speed on the technology that they're offering. And so we're definitely doing some testing there to see how those events can work for us now and into the future. We're also running a lot more events ourselves. So we've been doing information webinars for potential students, also supporting our colleagues in admissions, so that students who have offers can be provided the information that they need in order to accept and move on to attending at VIU. One of the sessions that we've run in particular is a virtual open house, and I'm going to go into that in some detail as a case study. So in May, we planned a virtual open house. It was a 2-day event, 2 days at opposite times of the day, so that we could make it convenient for as many time zones as possible. And this was to replace some of our spring travel leading up to the fall intake. So our purpose was to attract new prospective students and also to re-engage with students who we'd already been in touch with. The setup for the event, or the agenda for the event, was a 90-minute webinar, and within that we had a marketing presentation, we had a virtual campus tour, we had presentations by admissions and our immigration advisor, and then we actually broke out into one-on-one sessions, and students could book those in advance, a 15-minute one-on-one with the recruiter. And we found that to be very popular. In fact, we were booked up fairly early, and so we ended up adding some more staff to have the 15-minute sessions. So we made more available at the last minute. I was fortunate enough to be able to speak to some of those students myself, and I just thought that it was really the next best thing to engaging with them in person at a fair. I spoke with, I'd be on the line with a student from Nigeria who was coming for a master's program and was bringing his family, and had some questions around what life is like in Nanaimo for families. And then I hopped over to another call, and that was a study abroad student from Ireland. And so it was really interesting just being able to speak to people from all over the world within the course of a few hours. And I think that being able to answer their individual questions made the session really valuable for them. We marketed the sessions, the open house, using social media and email to our email lists within our CRM. You can see some of the creative on the right there. So the virtual open house swipe up, that was our Instagram ad. The Facebook event banner is below that. Those led to what you see on the right there. That is a customized landing page that we used, and the purpose of it was to convert people to sign up for the event, and then they could also book the one-on-one session right there at the same time. Actually, I'd like to talk a little bit about the webinar tools that we used, because we had a real lesson learned there. Before the event, we tried out, our team tested out a few different webinar tools because we had realized that the Zoom calling tool wasn't robust enough for answering questions. If you have 100 attendees who have, who each have questions, having those questions run by just in a basic chat window, it got a little bit chaotic. So we were looking for a tool that was more robust for the presentation. And in doing that, we selected a tool, and it tested fine when we ran our practice sessions. And then we got into the first of the 2-day sessions, and we found that with all of the attendees there, the server couldn't handle it. And so we had presenters dropping out, and fortunately we had backups for each of them. So to the viewer, I think that it looked okay, but it wasn't the tool that we were looking for, and we ended up moving on for the second date, and we're going to be using an enterprise level tool at this point, because we really need to be able to have a consistent offering there. So you can see the creative there for the appointment booking tool. Our staff blocked out 15-minute segments in their calendar, and then students could see what was still available and sign up for what worked for them. So that was a really well-organized way for us to do the calendar part of the program. And then I'm showing the results from our various campaigns around it. We ended up having 335 people sign up for it, and you can see that the runaway winners as far as responses were from our emails and from our Instagram ads.
So, of course, now that we are in a digital world or a virtual world, and there are all those terms that people have coined and tossed around, digital marketing, of course, is important more than ever before. Currently at UFV, we have campaigns that are active in over 30 countries around the world, and I made sure that I've carefully dropped these pins on the map. And if you're wondering what that map is on the lower part of Africa, it's actually Mauritius in the middle of the ocean. And of course, our objectives, I believe, would probably be aligned with a lot of you out there. So we are using a few tactics to achieve these objectives. We are using banner ad campaigns with the Google's display network to overall attract diverse and quality students, and specifically with this tactic, increase brand awareness. We use search engine marketing to engage with students and parents, and when they're actively searching, Googling about study abroad options. And we're of course using social media marketing and video marketing to engage with students on a more casual level, if you will, on social media especially, and encourage them to engage with us. And of course, all of our campaigns are tooled with remarketing and retargeting tactics. So that's basically once a student or a prospective student engages with one of our ads, we sort of tag them. I know it's creepy, but then we follow them throughout all the platforms. So if they click on our ad, on one of our ads on a website or on social media, then they'll be able to, they see our ads wherever they go for a few days. So specific to COVID-19, I was looking at our web traffic, and these are our top 5 channels from January to May, and I'm doing a year-over-year comparison. Social media, affiliate and referral is basically we have a few digital properties. For example, we have profiles on hotcourses.com, studyincanada.com, educations.com, and we get referral traffic and leads from those websites. Organic searches, of course, when you're just Googling something and you click on the organic search results, direct when somebody knows your web address and they just type it on the browser. And of course, paid search is the digital marketing that I was just talking about. And since January, we have been having over 1.3 million people clicking on our paid search ads and visiting our website as a result of it. As you can see, the traffic year over year for the rest of the channels are pretty similar, although they have increased. But the search engine marketing is certainly an interesting anomaly there. And looking closely at that, it's basically 95% of the traffic on the website for this year. So I'm going to just hand it back over to Leanne for social media marketing.
Thanks, Alda. So I wanted to talk about our social media marketing because it's been such a key part of our response during COVID-19. One of the things that is really important right now is that as students make their decisions about attending, deferring, whatever, we want to always stay really engaged with them and stay engaged with our prospects as well. And so one of the things that we're doing is trying to share really engaging content on our social media. So I've got a few examples up here. We have one of our students who is offering Zumba classes online, and he's calling it Zumba, which I think is kind of cute. And on the bottom right there, you can see a campus tour that our domestic marketing team put together that includes our international building, which you see there. And that has, it includes footage that we already had on file because we don't have a lot of people on campus right now, but it's being hosted with new audio and video with our student ambassadors. And so we're just updating it and making it really current that way. And in the middle of there, you see our colleague Simon. He has, in the last few years, been running an event called Culture Couch. And that event is where he works with one of our international students to cook some food, serve some drink, and celebrate the culture from their home country. And because those in-person sessions couldn't happen anymore, once we were off campus, he moved that online to a cooking show. And so he's hosting that show with international students, and it's actually getting a lot of visibility within our community as well. It's been featured in local media even. It's also really important to reach people to inform them right now, and I include our students and also our agents and partners. So some of the screenshots you can see here by the inform section are the first announcement and information session that we had when campus was closed due to COVID-19. And then since then, we've been running information sessions for various regions. So on the bottom left there, you can see a session that we ran for our South Asia market, and that was hosted by us here in Nanaimo, but the presentation was led by our South Asia team, and we had a student who was also in India who was speaking in that session, and that was very well received by those students there. And then we've had an opportunity to play a little bit too and to try out some new things. So one of the things that we've tried recently is influencer marketing. So the fellow you see on the right there is one of the top YouTubers in Latin America. And he was on campus in the spring term and filmed a video with us for his YouTube channel. And he gave us a little nod there, a thank you. And that video has since had about 13 million views. And we also have him doing a testimonial for us in one of our videos. And so continuing with the opportunities, now that our global teams are also working from home and not busy with their traveling on the road, going to visit agents and schools and doing in-person fairs, they have the language skills in order to help out with more of the native language social media. And so we're trying out some new platforms in different markets. One of the opportunities that we've had is to do a pilot project with Yellow in Vietnam. We have one of our local reps there who's responding to people in Vietnamese, and their materials now include the QR code for people to connect with them on Yellow. And in China, we've always been, we've had an account on WeChat and Weibo and all of the common platforms there for a while, but we've really had an opportunity to increase the activity there now that they have more bandwidth to do that in the China office. And we're also trying out some marketing on TikTok.
Okay, now it's back to me. I just wanted to talk about a couple of methods that we've already been talking about through Leanne and Yalda, but specifically for the recruitment purposes of actually not marketing, not branding, but we're talking about getting the bums in the seats, so to speak. The most common one that people are talking about right now, we find, is the virtual fairs, which are replacing the in-person fairs that have been going on for years. There's different types of them that are going on. The first one, agents. I'm sure everybody's getting bombarded, as we are, with agents who are scrambling because this is their business and they're trying to get students on board as well. So they want to run virtual fairs themselves. Just a word of caution with there, because a lot of them are doing it and this is their first exposure to it. They may not have figured out all the kinks. You just have to be careful. Third party are more like the FPP or Vegan group that are fair organizers traditionally and have usually, like FPP's got some good experience doing virtual fairs, and we've participated in them, and they have a more robust platform that is used to facilitating large groups of people. That's good. And then EduCanada, the sets of fairs that go on there that often use third parties, or they do their own things, are things that you can participate as well on the virtual fair front. Then secondly, I want to talk a bit about recruitment webinars, which Leanne has gone to. We've been using these a lot with some very good success. And there's a lot of advantages here that you cannot actually get advantage with doing the face-to-face stuff. So this is really useful. You can do different types of webinars. You can do the institution-wise, as if you're dealing with prospects who are first time to meet with your representatives from your institution. And the beauty of this, though, is that instead of like the traditional fairs that we'd have, you send one person across the world who would sit at a booth and talk to everybody. When it's institution-wide and it's a webinar, you can bring a number of different experts from your institution to talk to the prospective student. So you could have your recruiter there, obviously, but you could have admissions there to answer those questions. You could have somebody from immigration there. You could have faculty members there. You could have students there as well to talk to them. Because as we all know, students talking to students or students talking to their professors or the ones that may be teaching them has a lot of weight in the decision-making of the student. Secondary, program specific, you can change the emphasis. You can say, instead of doing institution-wide, you can do and organize things for a specific group of programs, maybe business programs or computing programs, and then have the relative experts or students from those areas on the webinar as well. It's very effective in talking to the students. And the third thing, again, Leanne spoke about just briefly about, is the adaption for the application stage that you can use. So you can do a general for prospects, people first time they're meeting you, or we've also done webinars for students who already have an offer but or have not yet committed by paying their money and get the letter of application. So they may be weighing different offers from different universities. So this is an opportunity to have a webinar, talk to them, bring your experts in, to have the different aspects of their concerns dealt with, and a webinar level. And the final thing is the prospects online meetings that we mentioned is when the students can talk one-on-one with a recruiter or anybody else that you feel is necessary. As you know, when you do a webinar to a large group of people, they've all like the basic information, but they all have their individual circumstances and they want to deal with them. That final bit allows that one-on-one activity to talk personally about their own special circumstances. Very useful for recruitment.
All right. So with all of what we have spoken and everything that we are doing right now, and even before COVID-19, student engagement is the crown jewel of all of that. We need to make sure that we are engaged with students, whether that's your applicants, prospective students, or ones who have an offer. There's a lot of anxiety out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Information is changing so rapidly, you know, with the lockdown in different countries, with our travel and immigration regulations, postgraduate work permit regulations. So it's very important that you keep engaged with students. And we have been doing that through website updates and email updates on UFV's response to COVID-19, to our agents, partners, and students, continuing students and new incoming students. We have been trying to address their concerns, especially when the whole COVID-19 hit, and I'm sure a lot of universities and colleges are on the same boat, on how can they get their transcripts to us, and what about the English language scores if IELTS test centers are closed. We have been trying to demonstrate flexibility and patience with students, and extending application deadlines and fee deadlines. We have been posting regularly FAQs on deferrals, refunds, and housing and travel restriction, and even the learning remote learning environment, which there's a lot of questions. And through, it's very important that we have kept thoughtful engagement with our students and agents. Like Bruce mentioned, even agents, there's a lot of anxiety with them because they wanna keep in business, and they're really trying their hardest to partner with us to get in touch with students and parents. So we have been, in addition to some mass communications that I just mentioned to you, we have been also doing personal communications with students and agents. We have our applicant relations manager for this bit at the center of it, which is to be helping us engage with students on one-on-one on emails, depending on where they are, to get their questions answered and helping them. And of course, our regional recruitment managers, they have been doing phone campaigns, something that we have never done before, that basically they get a list of all the students and they call them to check on them to see how they're doing and address their specific needs and answer their questions. And of course, this is a business, there's a business side to it that it helps us with our applicant relations and conversion to get them to the next step and moving them along the recruitment funnel that Bruce mentioned. We have been doing specific webinars also to engage with students. The notable ones are that we have hosted some with students who already have an offer from UFV for fall, and sometimes their parents, to talk to them, to answer questions, and to honestly help them sometimes to just, you know, manage the anxiety and the misinformation that's out there. And we've done one-on-one webinar, like Leanne mentioned, that, you know, students get 15 minutes with a recruiter to talk to them specifically about what they want to talk about. Of course, updating website and your digital properties is very important when engaging with students, because the information is just changing so rapidly. And in addition to all of this, we have done some drip email campaigns. We have a campaign right now in Latin America that we're partnering with studyincanada.com, for example, that we are doing the more traditional marketing and recruitment activities. We're sort of being mindful of not overdoing it, but we're trying to bring those campaigns on the surface again to talk about reasons of why you should attend UFV, scholarships, employability, in addition to the Google campaigns that I mentioned earlier.
All right, back to me. Of course, when any crisis happens, there are opportunities and challenges that present themselves. And so I'm just going to briefly list some of these so that some basis for some thoughts that we could have. We'll start with the challenges. There are definitely issues beyond our control, as there were before, but even within COVID, sometimes even more so. The travel restrictions obviously are a huge one. Students can't travel outside their country even if they wanted to, and Canada won't receive them even if they wanted to come here. So that's a huge thing that we can't control. We've got to roll with the punches, so to speak, and provide information as it becomes available. The same thing with visa approval rates, even if they are looking for a visa approval later down the road. A lot of the Canadian embassies are understaffed these days because of COVID, and the processing times can take longer. Quality and timely data is that it can be a challenge always with whatever we do in marketing recruitment, but actually in some ways, when you're doing virtual events, it's better because you can, if you look at use your analytics properly, you can get good leads from all the stuff, people who registered for webinars, that sort of thing. So it is quite timely in that. So it can be quite good as well as a challenge. Endless options and changing technologies. I mentioned that before. Yeah, we've only touched the surface of some of the options that you can do, and each one of these you can delve into much deeper. And then they change. 6 months from now, there'll be something else more popular in a particular country and a social media platform that you need to know about. Very challenging. And therefore, feeds into the last point is the challenge. You need to obtain and retain your expertise there. As you know, with public institutions particularly, we're not very good at paying competitive wages and that. So getting people who are really good at these sort of things, virtual platforms and that, can often be snapped up by private industry. So it's important to get those. But there are opportunities that we do have in this virtual world with as a result of COVID. There are economies offered by virtual technologies. Obviously, the one is that your recruiters aren't traveling. You're saving a lot of money on travel and accommodation there. So it gives you an opportunity to try more virtual things. You have greater control over messaging. And this I'm relating back to the point where you can plan your own events on the virtual world and post it out there. You could segment the audience that you want. You can have greater number of representatives from the institution addressing different issues. Changes in marketing and recruitment may be permanent. I personally believe that that probably is going to be the case. Maybe not everything, but it'll be largely determined upon the response from the audience. If our students, prospective students, after COVID is over, figure out that they like the virtual fairs and they're going to continue there, we're going to be there too. But if they decide they want to go back to face-to-face, they can do that. But things like webinars, I think, are really here to stay. And collaboration with other Canadian institutes, I think we need to think about this as a country in that you know, the Australians, the Americans, the UK, the New Zealanders are all looking at ways of getting their edge in the marketplace. I think we need to think about doing that instead of competing. We need to collaborate more if possible.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm really excited about those opportunities to collaborate with other universities. I think we could have BC-centric fairs or Canadian fairs, like you said, that are run by the universities, and we could have some cost savings there. So if anyone in the audience has some ideas there, we'd love to hear from you. And we can chat about that more in the Q&A. Just post your questions or ideas into the comments. So as far as best practices, we have found that we have to use a variety of virtual tools, and we really need a process for evaluating those. And we've learned that through a couple of experiences with new tools. So we have a staff member who does some initial research and looks at what's out there for the need that we have at the current time, and we'll do some testing there, maybe meet with some representatives, and then we have the team try out the top 3 picks and see what we all think of them and see if they'll meet our needs, and also test the stability. That's super important for us. And so by the time we go live, we have something that is hopefully pretty solid. As far as the events go, there are a lot of things that are beyond our control right now. We're all on the internet at home, and so we have on occasion had a presenter or someone with a key role who has lost their internet, or in one memorable occasion lost their power to their house. And so we always make sure that we have someone who can step in for them at a moment's notice. We adapt our approach to each market and are really cognizant of what the folks in that market are using as far as platforms and technology. And I'll give you one example there. When we run a session for the African market, we know that a lot of people there may be using cell phones only to view our session. So we want to make sure that everything looks really good on mobile. And then they may also have limited data plans. And so we're flexible on how we get in touch with them after. So for some markets, maybe a student wants to reach out to a recruiter on WhatsApp, or sometimes they'll create a WhatsApp group. And we encourage all of that. We just like to make sure that we have a representative in those groups to make sure that the information is accurate. And again, things to avoid using untested tools for the first time in a public session. I think that the strength of our brand relies on us having tools that are going to work with the way we expect them to.
Right, and in terms of lessons learned, of course, things are so rapidly changing, and everybody had to get all virtual at the drop of a second, and it's been really, I think, a very trying time, and I've timed it. It's been really interesting, and I think exhilarating at times. The lessons that we have learned during COVID-19 is, of course, the importance of having a robust CRM system and lead nurturing. That is more important than before. We have a CRM system at UFV that's very good, and it's actually really good. We can get all kinds of reports once an application is in, but the lead nurturing bit of it is not as robust. So we have been really working with IT to ramp up those capabilities, and at the same time, we had to resort to spreadsheets whenever we had to, and so it just highlights, and we certainly have communicated this, that it's really important that we have you have a robust CRM systems. Of course, video and social media is the most engaging content. We know that. Personally, I love video content more than, if I have to read a long article. And we have some really good examples of it during COVID-19. For example, our president, she has been putting out video updates on COVID-19, on our response to COVID-19, and it's been really, really well received. She's done it, at the beginning it started with like professional video, and later she's even started doing just like a rough cut video with her phone, which looks perfect. That's very genuine and speaks to the time that we are living in. The social media, of course, is the most engaging, and particular example, we had to do an Instagram live webinar with partnering with an agent in India, and it was really, really well received. And we have been doing, Instagram stories and whatnot, but having a full webinar live on Instagram, that was a very good experience, and it was really well received. And of course, last but not least, I just want to mention it one last time, that it's so important that we do frequent communication and student engagement to make sure that our students, agents, partners, our colleagues within the university, our teams are up to date on what's happening and how things are changing so rapidly. And of course, to dispel misinformation, because there's a lot of them out there, as you know. So that's it for our presentation for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for your attention. I'm just now going to turn it back to Enya for the Q&A bit.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Yelda. It's very interesting and informative presentation for sure, and there are a lot of great examples like the Zumba class and the kitchen show. We have received a lot of questions, so why don't we just jump right into all of them and try to go through as many as we can. First question is for Leanne. I think you've mentioned this in your presentation, but it would be great if you can just recapture that. Which platform and tools did you use for the virtual open house? Another institution was thinking to use Zoom. Do you recommend that?
Yeah, we had used Zoom for quite a few of our previous webinars and presentations, and we found that it was difficult to manage the Q&A because we had so many questions that came in, and amongst all of the comments that came in from the students as well, we had students chatting with each other in the comments, and so we found that part of it a little bit difficult to manage. So we did try another tool that was a smaller private tool, and we found that it didn't support the volume and diversity of traffic that we had. And so we had some technical issues in the background with that. We went back to Zoom for our next session and found an external way to manage the questions for the moderators. And we are looking at an enterprise level tool at this point.
Great, thank you. Next one is for any of you that can address. How does your digital content differ from country to country?
That's a very big question. I think you really have to be specific about which country you are looking at. Content management and certain common rules, I would think, like video, anything that with movement in that is going to be very attractive in that. But platforms can change depending upon the markets, and the content can change a little bit too. But geez, pick a country and we could get into it.
We have some platform preferences in different countries, definitely. And then I would say that one thing that we also consider there is translations, because we have an English language center on campus and we're dealing with people who initially have lower English levels. And so we're often looking at which of our markets we want to do translations for and what the technical content looks like in order to appeal to those people and also to the people who have native English.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. I just wanted to say that given our resources, it's always not possible to change content to every country. Plus, the messaging is similar to a lot of, when you're talking about your institution and the services and the programs, the only time that we change content most of the time is when it comes to admission requirements and things like scholarships. And of course, we use translations for that. Like Leanne mentioned, and preferred social media platform if you're communicating on social media.
And I'd say we also make photography choices based on region.
Right, absolutely.
That's great. Thanks so much for all the answers. Next one is a very interesting question. What does the panelists think about the chat bots, the chat features on Institute websites?
I can take that. I think it's a very good feature, and we are actually right now working on a website project that I'm working on an RFP document right now that we are planning to work with a third-party company to introduce a virtual assistant on our website. We had a test run a few months ago with the domestic team, and they figured out that a lot of traffic that were coming on the chatbot was actually international traffic. So we are working right now to introduce a virtual assistant in the form of a chatbot on our website in the next few months, and hopefully it's going to be driven by AI, and it's basically going to be having this logic to run on the background and sift through the content on our website. So when the students are typing in a question, it will guide them to the right point to get that information, specifically to start with about COVID-19, but then of course about everything else that the students need to look at.
We're working on a similar project as well, and it's interesting to look at how you can segment the audiences there between international and domestic, I think, because the questions and answers tend to be quite different.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Next one is for Leanne. What tool are you using to schedule student appointments with recruiters?
We investigated a few tools with the process I talked about earlier. We ended up with a tool called Appointlet. It has a couple of steps for integration, but we found that it was one that we could deploy for landing pages and also a website, and we would have various uses for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Next one. Next one is for both VIU and UFV. How do you make sure the image of your digital campaigns aligns with your university's public image on tools like TikTok that is mostly used in a not so serious, more entertaining way?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that we're creating some content that it has more of a fun component to it and lighthearted, but still keeping in mind our brand standard and the tone that we like to have in all of our communication. So I think it's a bit of a balancing act there.
That is true. We don't have TikTok yet. We're still thinking about it. But that's true that whenever we are engaging with students on social media, keeping it light, and we have our student workers, our global student associates that are doing a good job of, keeping students, like Leanne was mentioning, entertained as well as informed. But of course, we have to remain professional at all times and maintain our brand standards.
Yeah, it's an important aspect. You can't be too serious all the time. You're just not going to keep your audience engaged. So you've got to be somewhat entertaining. It's not that difficult to control your own messaging going out, but what you also have to do is monitor the conversations that are happening on these lines to make sure that things are said appropriately about your university, represented well. And if it's not, then you need to address it.
Absolutely. Next one is a little long question. I'll try to slow it down a little bit. When we tried digital marketing for international students, we tried a Facebook campaign in Brazil. It was successful in that we received a large amount of inquiries to our CRM. They were very low quality compared to an agent referral at least, and most never enrolled. Do you have a similar experience? How do you make sure the inquiries are high quality?
Well, I think that, sorry, I think that we, just through experience, we make note from campaign to campaign what's working and what's not, and also the cultural differences between the markets that we're speaking with, because some will want to find out information online and then connect with someone in person, and so we have to make sure that we give them the tool or the capability to do that.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that, when you're thinking about students getting in touch with you, you also sometimes sort of have to figure out the different touch points and how much effort does it take for a student to connect with you through one of those touch points. So, of course, by default, I am not surprised that leads that will come through social media would be a lower quality as compared to leads through an agent, because students have to make an effort to go and talk to an agent. Our digital campaigns in Africa, particularly in Cameroon, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and I think Mauritius, have been really, really well received, and we have been getting a lot of inquiries. We have not been able to really render those inquiries yet to see how many of those have turned into leads. And actual applications. But we would be suspecting a lower return on investment as compared to applications that come through an agent.
And I think it's all positive to create a contact with someone and get them into the marketing funnel, so to speak, right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
then you can send people campaigns to them, and you might have different conversion rates in different regions. And so the more leads you collect, ultimately, the more quality leads you'll have, and hopefully students on campus.
When you're when you are looking for people to come to your event, you can segment the population, you can target specific populations, and that can reduce the amount of unserious, not serious applications there. So it's important to do that segmenting too.
Particularly in the Facebook module, because you have so much capability to test with that. So doing some A/B testing or testing from event to event is a really good idea.
Great, thank you so much. I want to be cognizant with the time. And that's all the time we have for this hour. I want to thank our presenters, Yelda, Leanne, and Bruce for joining us today and for providing such an very insightful session on digital marketing, recruitment, student engagement. So thank you.
I'd like to thank you to BCCIE, to Enya, and to Gabrielle in the background. Thank you so much for your support in providing this session.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And we're happy to be in touch with anybody out there who still wants to carry on the conversation, has ideas in that. You see our email addresses here. So we're open to conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We've also sent a survey link in the chat box, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's webinar, as well as some future content that you wish BCCIE can offer. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all the questions. There are a lot of questions still coming in, but please feel free to reach out to our presenters. They'd love to hear from you as well. We will be sharing a recording and a copy of the presentation today after the session. Last but not the least, please visit our website for further information on upcoming webinars. Thank you again for joining us this morning. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.